You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. We are back. I hope that your hiatus over the holidays was as good as mine. For myself, I slept and I read and I corrected galley proofs on the new book of poems coming out this year. That was a thrill. And I cooked and I saw dear close friends and I slept. And I watched the news and read the news and frothed at the mouth, although I have to admit that it was amusing and gave me sadistic pleasure to watch the cornered rats begin to turn on one another. Anyway, I slept more and I did some closets. That's always a deeply satisfying task, and drawers. And I'm ready to come roaring into the new year. We have some really exciting guests lined up for this season, and we're starting right out of the gate with Leah Greenberg returning to the program. She is one of the 4 dynamic young founders of Indivisible, and that's an exciting conversation. And we have an expanded Surrealism Corner today and other surprises as well. So stick with us. But before we do any of those things, you know exactly where we're going to go, where I can't say no one has gone before, because we have. And we're going there again right now, inside the headlines. I was hoping, just for the hell of it, to make the first New Year's Inside the Headlines Trump-free. But that was a quixotic thought. So let's start abroad and then come home. In 2015, South Korea made a deal with Japan over the euphemistically named comfort women who were sexually enslaved by the Japanese during World War II. Under the deal, Japan promised to pay $8.8 million for care of elderly survivors. The current South Korean government, under pressure from the women and the women's movement, found that the deal did fail to represent victims fully and tried to reopen negotiations. But renegotiations would risk disturbing South Korea's relationship with Japan just when the countries are united in confronting North Korea over its weapons programs. So there will be no new negotiations, and South Korea will set aside its own $8.8 million fund to care for the survivors. The women feel and are betrayed again. If the year 2017 got you down so much that you wince at starting 2018, think again. Given world history and all things being relative, 2017 was actually a good year. No, I haven't gone crazy, but the website Our World in Data, run by Oxford University economist Max Roser, offers heartening news. Each day, the number of people around the world in extreme poverty, less than $2 a day, declines by 217,000. Each day, 325,000 more people gain access to electricity, and 300,000 more gain access to clean drinking water. In the 1960s, a majority of people had always been illiterate and lived in extreme poverty, but now fewer than 15% are illiterate, although most of those are female people, and fewer than 10% live in extreme poverty. Since 1990, the lives of more than 100 million children were saved by vaccinations, diarrhea treatment, breastfeeding promotion, and other such basic remedies. It does give one hope. Still, vigilance on all fronts is crucial. A new study which followed 1.8 million Danish women for more than a decade completely undoes widely held assumptions about modern contraceptives being safer for younger women than those taken by their mothers or grandmothers. The study reported that for every 100,000 women, hormone contraceptive use causes 68 cases of breast cancer annually, compared with 55 among non-users. This is despite the reduction of the amount of estrogen in new forms of contraception, including implants and intrauterine devices that release the hormone directly into the uterus. Research also suggests that the hormone progestin, widely used in today's methods, may be causing breast cancer risk. Nearly 100 million American women use oral contraceptives, and the number of women in the U.S. with intrauterine devices, many of which release hormones, has grown. So check with your own OBGYN. And here we are back in the good old USA. So much happened while we were away in the 72-hour news cycle that now takes place every 24 hours that I cannot even attempt to recap. There were lots of bad guys who bit the dust over MeToo revelations that spread across even more industries. Yay! And while it's easy enough to carpet Hollywood wearing black, the $14 million raised for legal defense of poor women who face sexual harassment crises, that's not just a glamour gesture. So I say, bring it on and let everyone participate, even the glitzy folks. And in Washington, it's snowing GOP retirees. As many as 8 Republican committee heads have so far announced their decision not to run again. This is unprecedented for committee heads, and it means that they know there is a blue wave gathering to wipe them out in midterm elections. 2 of them I have to mention for the sheer joy of it. Orrin Hatch, senator from Utah, whom I personally have loathed ever since he was so vicious to Anita Hill decades ago. He won't run for another term. And Congressman Darrow Issa of California, the attack dog against the Obama administration, he won't seek re-election. I am doing my little dance, folks. Of course, that's not even to mention the fall of Steve Bannon, who had proclaimed himself Thomas Cromwell to Trump's Henry VIII, although I warned on this program that he seemed not to have known how Cromwell ended up. Axed. More to come, too. Trump judicial nominees Brett Talley and Jeff Mateer have been stopped from moving forward for lifetime seats. Talley was unanimously rated not qualified by the American Bar Association, and Mateer spoke at an LGBTQ conference where speakers advocated for the death penalty for gay people. We won this because of activists who signed petitions and who pressured senators. The editor-in-chief of Christianity Today did not wait long after the votes were counted in the Alabama Senate race that defeated Roy Moore. Mark Galey, whose publication is the flagship of American evangelicalism, it was founded 61 years ago by Billy Graham, wrote, quote, "No one will believe a word we say, perhaps for a generation. Christianity's integrity is severely tarnished." Close quote. The size of white evangelical voters in Alabama giving overwhelming support to Moore, despite his record of racial and religious bigotry, misogyny, and assaults on teenage girls, has, according to Galey, so troubled other card-carrying evangelicals that many are now ready to disavow the label. It should be noted that young evangelicals, as well as Latino, Asian, Black, and Native American evangelicals, made a strong showing voting against Roy Moore, and many female evangelicals wrote on social media that they stayed home rather than vote for Moore or for his Democratic opponent, now Senator Doug Jones, with whose views on abortion they differed. Speaking of child rapists, the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting published an extensive investigation of Kentucky State Representative Dan Johnson, first-term Republican, alleging that he had sexually assaulted a 17-year-old parishioner at the Heart of Fire Church in Louisville, an evangelical church where he was bishop. During his campaign, he posted inflammatory remarks that got even the GOP upset. He depicted Michelle and Barack Obama as apes, and he wrote, "Allah sucks. Any of you jihadis who have an issue with me saying this, come visit me where I promise I will kill you," that's in all capital letters, "in my own front yard." Close quote. 2 days after the rape allegations were made public, Johnson killed himself with a single gunshot wound to the head. Now, I never thought I'd say something nice about Microsoft, but here it is. Amidst all the hand-wringing by corporations over sexual harassment, Microsoft actually made a policy change. It announced in late December that it had eliminated forced arbitration agreements with employees who make sexual harassment claims, and that it also would now support the proposed federal law that would widely ban such agreements. Forced arbitration lets companies keep such claims out of court, cloaking them from public view, and often allowing serial harassers to continue their behavior for years. So good for Microsoft. It's at least a start. There are also small but encouraging twitches of progress even in academia. Business schools around the country are beginning to reshape curricula. At Vanderbilt, there are classes on the mess made at Uber and on bro culture, B-R-O, bro, like brothers. At Stanford, students are studying sexual harassment in the workplace. At Harvard, the debate includes sexism and free speech. This is progress. Also uplifting is a new study reported by the New York Times that found the reach of fake news was wide but shallow. 1 in 4 Americans saw at least one false story, but even the most dedicated newsreaders, arch-conservative Trump supporters, consumed more of the real kind of news from newspaper and network websites and other digital sources. In other words, they may not want to believe reality, but they are somewhat still in touch with it. And, of course, while we were on holiday hiatus, Trump was busy. He bragged about his nuclear button being bigger and more powerful than Kim Jong-un's nuclear button. You know, and they say feminists make this kind of thing up. Oh, my God. He pronounced that he was a stable genius. He obsessively attacked Hillary again. He gave a speech to befuddled farmers about the numbers of his electoral college win. He had a public meltdown over Steve Bannon, and he used the words "no collusion" 7 times in one spoken paragraph. His White House also referred to the visit by Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg as a visit from the president of Norway. Yep, Norway. Then again, the White House was scrambling to survive the Fire and Fury book, which revealed, among other things, that everybody around Trump basically thinks he's bonkers and dumb both, and that, no big surprise here, he refers to women every day in demeaning terms, calling his communications director, Hope Hicks, a piece of tail, and describing former acting Attorney General Sally Yates by using the C word. The book also confirmed long-running news accounts that Trump retires in the early evening to his Betty Buy, where he eats junk food in bed while watching 3 television screens and phoning up cronies. But newer revelations included his fits of rage when anyone touches his toothbrush or picks up his clothes thrown on the floor, revealed his terror of being poisoned, and his insistence on stripping the linens from his own bed and refusing to let staff remake the bed until he lets them. People, I have to tell you that this rang creepy bells. It's reminiscent of the infamous Moscow hotel room referred to in the dossier, in which Trump allegedly frolicked under a, quote, golden shower shed by 3 prostituted women. Now, I don't know what fantasies this guy plays with in his sheets, and I don't want to know, but he does something that he doesn't want White House housekeeping seeing, and it makes me even more nervous and nauseated than it made MI6's Christopher Steele, who compiled the dossier. And last, now that the dossier has proven itself more and more accurate, hats off to Senator Dianne Feinstein, who a few days ago released the transcript of congressional investigators' interview last August with Glenn Simpson, founder of Fusion GPS, which commissioned that dossier. She broke no laws, but she did break precedent, refusing, as ranking member of the minority party, to follow rules that the chair of the committee, Chuck Grassley, refused to follow himself. Despite his earlier pledge to release the documents, he reneged and instead leaked only selective portions, and then spun them toward a shocking attempt to criminalize Steele and GPS Fusion for having reported the truth. Dianne Feinstein is sometimes a military hawk and a deficit hawk. She can drive a feminist a little nuts, but she's been in the Senate a long, long time, and she is, as my departed mother would have said, no spring chicken. Dianne Feinstein rose from the ashes of her staid and proper self, eyes blazing, to make history. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Diane. We have to take a break. I'm Robin Morgan here at Women's Media Center Live, and I'll be right back with Indivisible founder Leah Greenberg. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. As promised at the top of the show, my guest today is Leah Greenberg of Indivisible. She's returning to the program a second time. Leah most recently served as policy director for the Tom Perriello for Governor of Virginia campaign. Previously, she managed human trafficking grants and programs as an investments manager for Humanity United. She served as an advisor to the State Department's Quadrennial Diplomacy and Development Review, and she worked on Capitol Hill for then Congressman Tom Perriello, Democrat from Virginia. And more to our purposes today, she is one of the 4 founders of Indivisible, which, as the world now knows, has been making wonderful political mischief in organizing and helping to organize grassroots activism in this country against Trumpism. And she's going to tell us the plans for 2018, and they are all very heartening. It's a great pleasure to welcome back to the program Leah Greenberg. Oh, it's so good to have you back.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Indivisible has been doing the most incredibly wonderful things since the first time that you were on the program. For people who have been in another solar system, well, first of all, congratulations, you haven't been in this one. But secondly, if you haven't heard of Indivisible, it was started a year or two ago by 4 former congressional staffers, one of whom, Leah Greenberg, is with us today again, to try and equip ordinary, wild-eyed, frustrated citizens who saw their republic slipping away, with the tools that would actually make a difference in lobbying and in impacting on members of Congress. And since then, oh my God, Indivisible's been all over the place. All of the city halls and the town halls, and people holding up signs and people sitting into congressional offices. All of that was brought about by the various tips that Indivisible gave them that would work. So thank you and congratulations. And tell us what's up next.
Thank you. Well, we really see this year as a pivotal year. Over the last year, what we saw was folks who came together to pursue the strategy that we had outlined in our original document, the Indivisible Guide, which went viral. They came together and they formed communities dedicated to action all around the country. And often they started by pressuring their elected officials, their members of Congress, to resist the Trump agenda, but they also expanded and took on other priorities in their local areas, other electoral priorities, et cetera. And so, what we're seeing this year, and what we're really excited about supporting at Indivisible, as we've now formed a nonprofit, is a combination of keeping our feet on the pedal. On the advocacy side, really holding the administration accountable for the terrible tax bill vote that happened last year, or at the end of last year, and continuing to fight hard for progressive priorities and against the damaging administrative priorities that are coming down, which look a lot like either a privatization of infrastructure or efforts to peel back existing entitlement programs. But also pivoting to electoral work. So what we saw over the course of 2017 was that this is a movement that is showing up in town halls, showing up at congressional offices, but also showing up at the polls and doing the work to prepare people to get to the polls. And so we're really excited to see our network as it's pivoting to, on a local level, electoral work all over the country.
I have to tell you also that from the feminist perspective, one of the indigestive points has been that the power of the women's movement in this country, which is considerable and vast, has never really been wielded on the electoral front. And what we're seeing for the first time is that now there is a record number, way surpassing previous records, of women planning to run or already running for office. And I know that some indivisibles have run for office, newbies, first-time citizens who have said, well, hell, I don't know how to do this, but I can do it better than the people who are sitting up there not doing it. Didn't some indivisibles run and win in some, I have Michigan on my mind. I don't know why, but was that one of the places, or Virginia?
That's both of those places. That's absolutely right. We have seen Indivisible leaders, people who started by getting involved in an Indivisible group, running for office and winning around the country, from Iowa to Michigan to Pennsylvania to Virginia, where one of the new members of the House of Delegates, the House of Delegates almost flipped to the Democratic side. One of those new members who was elected was an Indivisible group leader herself. So we are, and then in Michigan, I think you're thinking of a city where multiple members of the city council now got their start organizing with Indivisible. Yes. So we are really excited. We see this as part of a broader wave. I think that what we've seen all over the country is, people are really re-engaging with the civic processes and the institutions in their communities. And one of the things that happens when you start off as an Indivisible group, going and talking to your elected officials, is you realize that you could do that job too, and then you start thinking about how you can do that. And so we have been really excited to see this as one of the outgrowths of the movement, is people really picking up and running all over the country, and expect that to continue in 2018. This
is just so thrilling. I mean, civics isn't taught to my grief in schools anymore, but what you've done is you've replaced civics, and you've made it not boring. You've made it fun. You've made it fun and insouciant and hopeful. People are so desperate for hope, to wake up every morning and have this. I've just run out of ways to describe him. But let's just say Trumpism. The first thing that you encounter in the news every day is so dispiriting to many, many people that just to pick themselves up out of bed and get started again is hard enough. But this is real hope. And the grassroots activism, I have to say, as an old organizer, I was cynical and worried, because we all know that starting something is okay, and that's terrific, and people get hot under the collar, but sustaining it is the hard part. And it's been sustained, I believe, in very large part due to Indivisible.
Well, thank you. But I think we're very aware that we wrote a document, but people have written guides to how to talk to Congress before. The moment was really what made it. The fact that there was so much energy, there was so many people had gone through this emotional experience of realizing that they, the system had failed, the things that were supposed to stop something like this had failed, and they needed to stand up. Yes. And, we're really honored to have been part of that journey into activism for so many people. And, and also proud to be doing everything we can to support and plug into the existing infrastructure, activism, leadership that already exists and that has already been advocating for change and resisting around the country for so long.
Yes, yes. Talk about the Indivisible Institute, because that is on the website, and it's very interesting and very encouraging toward the future.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we are doing this year is we are bringing together Indivisible group leaders from all over the country to do regional convenings and institutes, where we're really focusing on leadership development, on strategic planning, on training and coordination, so that we're helping to support local leaders as they're seeking skills to really lead into the future. We're really trying to invest in the sustainability of these communities and of the leadership on the ground, and we see that as a really critical part. And I was just at one of we've done two of them so far. I was at the convening that we held in Atlanta for organizers from around the southern states, and it was it was an emotional experience to come together with folks who had been leading on their home turf, and in some cases in places that are pretty hostile to progressive organizing for a long time, and doing it really creatively and bravely and excitingly, and hear their stories and share ideas and strategies and recharge for the fight ahead.
Yeah, and it's going to be a heavy year. I feel like the entire country is holding its breath waiting for Mueller. Never mind Godot. I mean, it's like waiting for Mueller for the shoe to drop. I have heard, and I don't know whether you would know or whether in fact this is an Indivisible project, but I might as well ask, since I'm speaking to the source. I've heard that there are preparations, by groups, maybe Indivisible groups, I don't know, so that on a moment's notice, should Mueller be fired, or should there be more of a constitutional crisis than there in effect already is, there would be organizing tools and help and directives of where to go for people to hit the streets. Is that true? Is that a good idea? Is that hopeful? What have you heard about that?
Yes, absolutely. We are part of a coalition of progressive organizations and nonpartisan organizations that are planning to make sure that there is an immediate, very public and very high energy response in the event that Mueller is fired or that the Trump administration takes other actions that are wild subversions of the law on that front. But Indivisible groups and others all around the country have signed up to host emergency rallies in the event that Mueller is fired. Just depending on the time, there will be a set time for everyone all around the country. And the idea is, that there are hundreds of thousands of people who have actually signed up already, saying that they are plan to take to the streets if Mueller is fired. Oh,
that is so encouraging, and somehow I can breathe again. I mean, knowing that there's a road, there's a process.
TrumpisNotAboveTheLaw.org.
Okay. TrumpisNotAboveTheLaw.org. Let me move to the sort of the philosophical or the predictive, knowing how dangerous that is. But just since you've been a congressional staffer, what are your thoughts on what, if anything, will move this Congress? I mean, understanding the cynicism and understanding how they don't care as long as there's somebody in there to sign their bills, even if you can't read them. What, if anything, would actually move them to action?
So I think that it depends on the issue. You really have to think at any given moment, who are the key players? What are their incentives? What are they worried about? And what can you hope to gain? So I think one of the key things that's actually been, under discussed story of 2017 has actually been the dramatic unity of the Democratic caucus, which is not a story that people would have expected at the beginning of 2017, because I think a core part of, for example, what allowed Democrats to hold off Trump care was the fact that there was a universal commitment across the Democratic Party not to negotiate on a repeal of Obamacare. And that actually was really powerful. So in one case, it's about talking to Democrats and talking to them about your expectations that they're going to stand for bold progressive values. On the Republican side, it really depends. I think that you are seeing a lot of Republicans who made the calculation on the tax bill, essentially, that they needed to pass something, anything, just so that they could have some kind of achievement heading into the election. Now, I think that was a pretty historic miscalculation on their part, because the tax bill is wildly unpopular now, and it's only going to get less popular going into the election. We're gonna see people being asked every day from now until the election, why did you raise my taxes, and how much did you save when you cut your own? And that's not a good look. So what I think we have to do right now is just keep, first of all, banging that drum, keep making sure that people understand they haven't improved their situation by doing, by passing that bill. And they're certainly not going to improve their situation by privatizing infrastructure, by, moving us to a toll system for more roads, by, cutting, Medicaid, all of the things that they're currently considering. These are not popular things. And so really just a continued advocacy, push to define the issues, to define the candidates is going to be really critical heading into 2018.
Yeah, because so far the only Republicans with any guts have been those who are retiring or are about to retire or not running again, or,
exactly.
And who feel quote unquote free to speak, such as it is. And even they, you can't count on, because they'll turn around and turn chicken and run with their tail between their legs, to mix my metaphors, and vote for the tax bill.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Yeah. Even the Republicans who, they're prepared to talk about how upset they are and how concerned they are. But what we haven't seen is the voting record that would actually suggest that they take Trump seriously as a threat to American democracy.
Right. What are your thoughts, if any? I realize that you're pursuing activism no matter what, which is the absolute correct and proper and thank God you're doing it way. But what are your thoughts about the 25th Amendment and your thoughts about impeachment?
So I think that both of them. I'll step back and say that I think that the issue that we have consistently seen with impeachment in the 25th Amendment is there's no referee in this situation. There's no objective indication. We called for impeachment as an organization midway through last year. If we, by any objective standard, we've long since blown past it. So the question isn't necessarily should it happen. The question is what would cause the political actors who need to get on board to determine that.
What will it take
to determine that they're what will it take for them to conclude that their political survival depends upon doing this?
Right.
Or in some cases their actual survival. Given that we have a person who's just wildly unpredictable in the White House with control of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's really about how do we hammer home that message that continued cooperation, collaboration really will ultimately have negative impacts for Republicans' political chances in the future. And, because in any situation, you are going to need some cooperation for the 25th. You need the cabinet's the majority of cabinet's cooperation.
Right.
For impeachment, you need some Republican momentum. And, for us, ultimately, what we've seen is Republicans have been willing to stay quiet while incredibly troubling, damaging, frightening things are happening. And the best way to show them that that's not actually their best strategy is to organize as intensely as we can for elections and show them that, if they're thinking that that's going to save them, then it won't.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I can tell you, you may know this already, but Emily's List, which is a women's organization to raise money for women's candidates, normally has about 900 women, who come to them and say, we'd like help with our campaigns. And this year, they're have you heard the new number that has come to them?
No, what is it?
22,000 women.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. That is just amazing.
Who have just had it, the combination of Trump and MeToo and everything just boiling to a point and women just saying, this is our planet, just, time's up in more than one way. So from 900 to 22,000 is pretty impressive. And that's just women. There are wonderful guys who will be running as well. Oh, Leah, thank you for everything you do. Please keep doing it. Listeners, if you haven't supported Indivisible with a penny or anything else more that you can possibly afford, this is the best possible place to give a donation, because it is really put into grassroots organizing and it is building democracy back up, just as we are about to lose it, or were about to lose it without Indivisible. We are Indivisible, and I'm deeply grateful to you, Leah Greenberg, and to everybody on the original organizing team and on Indivisible now. Visit the website, check it out, join an Indivisible group in your area. Thank you so much, Leah. And thank you for being with us again on Women's Media Centered Live. We'll come back to you again many times.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure always. And I know we talked about this last time, but it really means a lot to hear that from you because, your writing has inspired me. So it's just a really powerful thing. So thank you.
I forgot that part, but it makes my day. Time for another quick break here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and stick with us because coming right up is the very, very full Surrealism Corner.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back and ready for the Surrealism Corner. Well, I'm sitting here facing a stack of clippings and printouts, and I'm going to winnow as I go Some of the things that happened while we were on holiday hiatus, I'm not going to go into in depth because a mere reference is probably sufficient. For example, the Pentagon, it turns out, was holding a secret search for UFOs. That's one. And then the infamous Omarosa Manigault Newman, from reality TV Trump days, who had become a high-ranking White House official, was apparently carried to the door and evicted. Can't wait for those memoirs to come out. And then on the sort of good news, although, dubious successes front, but important, every little step counts. There's a new Doctor Who, and it's the first female Doctor Who, and the first female director of the Vatican museums, and she's forging a much more popular path. Good luck surrounded by all those boys in their pretty frocks. Speaking of religion and religionists, the Taj Mahal is a great architectural and cultural edifice. No? Yeah. Well, the great Nobel Prize-winning Indian author Rabindranath Tagore called the Taj Mahal a teardrop on the cheek of time, because this probably greatest cultural treasure of India was built in the 17th century by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan as a tomb for his wife Mumtaz Mahal, whom he loved very much, and it's considered one of the wonders of the world, and it's considered a magnificent symbol of enduring love, and it's one hell of a tourist attraction. But late last year, the state of Uttar Pradesh, where the Taj Mahal is located in the city of Agra, that state is headed by a firebrand Hindu fundamentalist cleric, Yogi Adityanath. And he cut the monument from the tourism brochure, and he cut its funding from the state's tourism budget because it was a blot on Indian culture, you understand, built by Muslim traders. He's a Hindu fanatic. So then, sensing that such attacks could devastate his state's tourism revenue, he had to backpedal from that. And the Taj Mahal has since been restored to the tourism brochure. But it was an example of madness, absolute and total madness, of one of the wonders of the world being erased because it was built by people from another religion. Meanwhile, in Norway, little lateral leap to the west, late last year, there was an installation as a protest in a Supreme Court case brought by an indigenous Sami. The Sami people are the indigenous people of the region, an indigenous Sami herder. Now, his name is Joviset Ante Sara, and he is challenging the Norwegian government's reindeer reduction policy. He's won 2 court victories, but each time the government appealed. And so in order to get attention during the 3rd round in court, he has been carting around hundreds of bullet-ridden reindeer skulls and stringing them up in a great curtain. This was a curtain that he strung up macabre site outside the Stortinget, Norway's parliament. And he said, it's a shame and a pity that you have to drag along 400 heads around the world to get the word out there about our reality and to find a voice. The Sami minority is best known for its traditional practice of reindeer husbandry, but the country's laws require that reindeer herders across the high north have to kill a percentage of the herd as part of the government's reindeer reduction policy. The Sami people are arguing this is an infringement of indigenous rights. But I must say that the photo, which if you're at all curious for the macabre, which I happened across online, is arresting, to say the least. This vast curtain of 400 reindeer skulls, bullet-ridden. It's a way of getting attention for a protest, but it's decidedly surreal. What is also surreal is that, wait for it, Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran, of course, being Shia, and Saudi Arabia being Sunni, and the two of them being at each other's throats over almost everything from the wars in Syria and Yemen to their relations with the United States. Well, Not enough to clash over oil production and over religious pilgrimages and who is a terrorist and who isn't. But now they are, I know you'll be so glad to hear this, they are competing for expanding women's rights. Isn't that great? Well, you need to be on LSD and have a microscope to find the progress. But nonetheless, Tehran announced that the so-called morality police who patrol the capital will no longer automatically detain and punish women seen without the proper hijab head covering in public, an offense that is commonly called bad hijab. They will be given counseling instead, which, it is time-consuming, but better than lashes in public. In Saudi Arabia, the authorities have announced that they will allow female contestants at an international chess tournament to play without the full body garb known as the abaya. And there's other great leaps forward as well. Saudi women will soon be allowed to attend soccer matches at public stadiums. And in June, the government says they'll be permitted to drive not only cars, which just came into being, that just passed, but also trucks and motorcycles. Whoopee! They can't vote, of course, but then again, in Saudi Arabia, nobody can vote. And Iran still requires women to wear the head coverings in public. It's just that they'll get counseling for, if they go bareheaded and feel the sun on their scalp. So whether the Saudi decision to allow female spectators at soccer matches will lead Iran to do the same is unclear, but Iran has said late last year that it will allow female weightlifters to compete in international competitions abroad for the first time. This kind of progress in bizarre areas, I don't mean to offend weightlifters and certainly not chess players, but it does seem, that you could start with more basic things like violence against women, like inheritance rights, like the right to vote. But, I'm just a feminist. Carp. Meanwhile, back at home, alt-right women are now upset that alt-right men are treating them terribly. Feminism has come to the alt-right. Prominent alt-right women have been calling for more equality and acceptance within the right wing, the male supremacist, white supremacist, Nazoid movement. So there's trouble brewing in the MAGA world. Women in the alt-right are apparently constantly harassed, surprise, surprise, by low-level anonymous trolls who are, quote, trying to put us in our place. This was tweeted by Tara McCarthy, who is a self-described ethno-nationalist, late last December. She said, the ultimate goal seems to be to bully us off the internet. Imagine that. She went on to say, women in the alt-right are constantly being harassed, trying to put us in our places for various reasons. Men in the alt-right, she went on in another tweet, are going to have to decide whether they will continue to passively or actively endorse this behavior or to speak out against it. If you want more women speaking publicly about ethno-nationalism, I suggest, she says, you choose the latter. Maybe they don't want more women, Tara. Has that occurred to you? She tweeted again, guys, I'm not saying I can't take any trolling or harassment on the internet. Obviously I can. I've probably had more of it than most of you will see in a lifetime, and I'm still here. And I'm not stating the above solely for my own personal benefit. And then she tweeted one more time, the problem I'm stating here is not that there are trolls on the internet, but that people who proclaim to be on our side are trying to tear down women in our in-group. If you can't see why this is dysfunctional, I can't help you. Tara McCarthy. Well, Tara, if you get fed up with the boys in the alt-right, you might look around the rest of the world. Women are having this problem with men who ostensibly are, quote, on our side, in the left, in the right, in the north, in the south, and pretty much everywhere. So there's an alternative. It's called the women's movement, but it might require reevaluating some of your values, and that might not be for such a bad idea. And we're going to close today's Surrealism Corner with some predictions. I decided to make some crazy, surreal predictions for 2018 and beyond. And I offer them for your amusement. For example, in the future, opinion journalism will so have outpaced reporting that there will be no ed, only op. In the future, Rush Limbaugh, stoned on drugs, will recant all his positions and apologize to his loyal listeners. One of those loyal listeners will then shoot him. In the future, Chris Matthews will actually let a guest finish a sentence. In the future, legal documents will be textable, therefore shifting from unintelligible legalese to unintelligible text lingo. LOL. In the future, we will get our news 24/7, streaming 3D through eyeglasses, and walking on the sidewalk will become the major cause of death. In the future, intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, having for centuries watched the first signals from us to reach them, Hitler's speeches and I Love Lucy reruns, this is true, that's what reaches them first. Well, they will arrive on Earth and kill all men and all non-red-haired women. In the future, because of the Women's Media Center, there will be so many women executive producers and news editors and heads of news divisions and feature directors and all those high-level positions they say it'll take us till 2080 to crack into, that we're going to form a critical mass of power while we cluster in the reception area waiting for even just a moment of audience with the heads of studio or network or newspaper or online media owners. That is, one of the 6 pale males who control media, who own it. In the future, Oprah will decline to run for president, but she will buy Silicon Valley entire. And thereafter, all digital technology will be bundled with a self-help program, a petition against gas-guzzling cars, a scented candle, and a gas-guzzling car. In the future, Nickelodeon will be renamed the Alzheimer's Network, but no one will be able to remember which channel it's on. In the future, everyone will watch TV on their computers, and by then we will be so sedentary we will need a remote control for what is sitting directly on our lap. In the future, reality shows will be what the news is now. News will be what ESPN and E! Entertainment Network is now, and those two, respectively, will show round-the-clock extreme fighting and the Kardashians entering and re-entering rehab. In the future, because we will have so abused all forms of energy, including our own, lights will go out and electronic media will vanish, but the drums will speak. And won't that be surreal? It's time for one last pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back directly with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again with some fighting words. The misuse of language induces evil in the soul. It's a statement attributed to Socrates, and you may have heard or read me quoting it before. Well, here it is again. The right-wing assault on language has escalated to a linguistic battle, now even being waged across official Washington, in the attempt to shift public perception of key policies by changing the way the federal government talks about climate change, about scientific evidence, and about disadvantaged communities. We all remember George Orwell's 1984 and the totalitarian state's mottos, "War is peace, freedom is slavery." Most of us recall the real-life motto posted above the gates to the Nazi extermination camp Dachau. Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free, as if it were a work camp. We've now become accustomed to violence against words practiced by Fox News and Murdoch-owned tabloids that refer, for example, to distinguished special counsel Robert Mueller as a traitor, that call any investigation of Trump campaign conspiracies with the Russians a left-wing coup. But now it's a battle in official Washington. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, received a list of forbidden words, including diversity and fetus. Unborn human would be preferred. And in some instances, they were directed to alternative phrases to use. Instead of evidence-based or science-based, the suggested phrase is, quote, CDC bases its recommendations on science in consideration with community standards and wishes, close quote. Think about that one. How about the CDC bases its recommendations not to drink rat poison on science in consideration with community standards and wishes? Or how about the CDC bases its recommendations about weight based on gravity and the planet being round in consideration with community standards which warn that if you walk too far to the edge of the flat world, you will fall off? At the Department of Health and Human Services, employees are being instructed to avoid such words as vulnerable, entitlement, and, there it is again, diversity, when they prepare requests for the 2019 budget. Quote, except when the terms are referenced within a legal citation or part of a title, close quote, which are hilarious exceptions when you think about them. The agencies under HHS include the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, and the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA. Health and Human Services spokesman Matt Lloyd confirmed that agency officials made such recommendations, but he claimed they didn't ban any words outright, or they didn't prohibit employees from using certain words. Instead, he claimed that employees had misconstrued guidelines provided during routine discussions. But HHS officials and employees said the message was quite clear. A group of 315 public health organizations also sought an explanation regarding the CDC list, saying, as the nation's premier public health agency, the CDC cannot carry out its mission of improving the health and safety of all Americans when its staff are urged to avoid using basic phrases intrinsic to public health. Late last summer, the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention issued a core language guidance document to employees and contractors with a column of words and phrases to avoid alongside a column of acceptable alternatives. The document recommends using all youth instead of underserved youth, recommends referring to crime as a public issue/public concern rather than a public health issue, public health concern, and describing young people who commit crimes as offenders rather than system-involved or justice-involved youths. The document, a copy of which was obtained by the Washington Post, also orders avoidance of the term substance abuse disorder in favor of substance abuse issues. This runs counter to efforts by experts to cast substance abuse as a disease, but it is to, quote, better reflect Justice Department priorities, close quote. The Justice Department's move to censor the discussion about juvenile justice has alarmed advocates who note that referring to youth who have committed crimes only as offenders ignores the fact that they are still legally minors and literally children. But the new emphasis is already having an impact. In 2016, solicitation for proposals to provide mentoring to child victims of sex trafficking specifically cited LGBTQ youths, who make up a significant portion of the trafficked population. But in 2017, a similar solicitation for proposals contained no such mention. Climate change has been a linguistic minefield. References to it have been purged repeatedly at the Environmental Protection Agency and at the Department of the Interior. The term climate change has been banished from 2019 budget discussions across all departments. An example of the trickle-down effect? Well, a Colorado College environmental science professor was supposed to teach an Introduction to Global Climate Change class at the Florissant Fossil Beds National Monument, but then was informed he would have to revise his syllabus because it had to be sent to the National Park Service Climate Change Office in Fort Collins for review, and the NPS had been told climate change must not be part of the message. The professor threatened to pull out, but his hosts ultimately relented, and so he continued with his class. Nevertheless, climate-related documents continue to be erased from the Department of the Interior website. The links to 92 national parks' climate action plans have vanished. Barry Bennett, a Republican consultant who advised Trump during his campaign, says, "The administration correctly understands that they are battling a hostile bureaucracy." Well, I say long live the courageous, hostile bureaucracy. And just now comes word of Trump's shameful epithet describing all countries where basically black and brown people live. Talk about evil in the soul. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter, and you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net, and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.